Hello, everybody. I'm Cara Wietstock, culture editor at Ganjapreneur and host of Fresh Cut. And today I'm really stoked to invite Kim Myles to have a conversation with me about her brand new reality show, High Design, where she goes from coast to coast to cannabis dispensaries, helping redesign their interiors to bring in more business and help their patients and customers. Kim, thank you for joining me today.
Hi,
Happy
Cara.
to have you.
Thank you. I'm so stoked to be here. Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. Nice to be here.
If you're not familiar, Kim has been a reality host and star in the interior design world for a long time. And I just want to start out and ask how you got into interior design and when that intersected with reality television.
Yeah. I mean, interior design is a lifelong love. I've been reorganizing. I started rearranging my furniture in my bedroom when I was 12, right? Like on a regular basis, so by mood. So like that, or like trying to alter space and understanding the effect that altering my space had on my mood, on how I saw myself, that process and that fun began really, really early. And then the intersection with reality is that I took that process to a reality competition. So back in the day, for those youngs out there, there were shows all over the place where everybody competed for everything. And there was a show on HGTV called Design Star, HGTV's Design Star. And so it was an elimination competition. And America voted on the final winner. And I was chosen to compete. I competed and I prevailed and I won. And the prize was your own television show. So that launched me into the world of designing for reality television. I almost said designing for reality, but designing for reality television is not the same as designing.
I'm really glad you separated those. Our generation has some trouble sometimes because it was that time of everyone was competing on TV for things.
Yeah.
And the show was Myles of Style, right?
Yes.
Ran like 4 seasons.
Yeah, I have 3 seasons.
Okay.
Yes. And it was the ride of a lifetime. It was such an adventure. So yeah, it's a wacky origin story.
And then now, pardon me. Now that experience with both interior design and television has intersected with high design.
Yeah.
I am curious about when you had that aha moment for wanting to design retail interiors in cannabis, and if you had any experience in retail interiors or just home design and how that might translate or be different.
Yeah, absolutely. So huge fan of cannabis. Let's just start with that.
We do have that in common.
Big fan. Changed my life the minute I was introduced to it. I mean, beyond just addressing anxiety and sleep issues, just the feeling of lift. That particular feeling just was life-changing for me. And so for me, I've just been passionate about cannabis. And I was a patient and a member in multiple collectives, which, the cannabis world has come through lots of different, what we call it. But
yeah, I think for
the
non-Californians, maybe the language we need, like in Prop 215 days, as a budtender, I had to use this language. So, like, you were never getting money. You were never, it was never a payment. You were donating.
Donations.
A lot of people were confused.
It was confusing.
And you're a member of the collective if you shop there. I was a member of so many because you just want to go shopping. Anyways, back to it. So you were speaking on getting into cannabis design and how retail and home design might be different or similar.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh my God, no, it's so interesting because it's so true, right? So it was exactly that. I was a member of so many different collectives. And what I realized was I was always searching for an experience. I found lots of collectives that had fantastic service and okay product, or great product and crap service, like budtenders who were high as kites and ill-informed, right?
A
like
Santa Ana vibe.
It was like the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
When will I find my home? Right? Like you're always looking. And so it really was born of the selfish desire to have the type of money I was spending, purchase the cleanest, best flower possible in an environment and with an experience that matched the ticket price. I wanted that synergy, right? And it was something I couldn't find as a patient. I couldn't find it as a customer. I couldn't find it as a member. Call me whatever you want. I could not find that perfect thing. And frankly, I found one, and then it got busted. It was raided by the feds. So I'm just like, look, it was just constantly hunting for an environment that didn't make me feel like a criminal.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, I did interior design heavily. All of my TV career is focused on residential. But over the years, I've been super curious about does I like anything user experience, experiential? How do you design space for human beings? And so I have taken night classes at fancy schools. I don't want to pay their daytime rates. And just to learn about environmental design, commercial design, how that works, and to scaling space like that, right? So that's just that's a pursuit of mine. It intersects professionally, but just I'm passionate about it. And bringing all of that into dispensaries, that was the thing, was going, okay, I'm very clear about what residential space requires. Mm-hmm. I am super clear as a patient, as a client, as a customer, as a consumer, what I require from my retail experience. How in hell has somebody not done this? Make it a show. I could not believe it. Like, it was just like, I'm sure someone's done. I'm sure they have. I'm sure. So that's how it all came together.
It's like a forgotten island of cannabis retail right now, interior design. And we've talked a little about it. I'm not sure if it's just there's so much going on. Keeping up with compliance is so hard. I also constantly redecorated my room, moved the furniture, hung weird stuff, but I am no interior designer. So like, I think that missing component is that thirst for knowledge and continued education that you have. I chose to put my little brain tokens in different boxes,
Totally.
But I still reorganize the furniture every couple of months.
I mean, but doesn't it give you, like, I just feel like that for me, even if I don't have the time or the energy to reorganize or rearrange an entire room, even a small vignette for me, honestly, a shelf or a tabletop, just some moment where I can tweak it, it buzzes a portion of my brain that I don't get from any other creative exercise.
Yep. And you just kind of like are breathing fresh air in that room. And it's like, when you're a little kid and you're sitting on a chair and your legs dangle, like that's the feeling of reorganizing something.
Okay. I'm 5 feet tall, so I'm sitting here and my legs are dangling as I talk to you. I have that feeling all the time, Cara.
You're so lucky, so whimsical. So that continued education portion like played a role in high design because you went and you took a retail job, swept some floors. Why was it important to you to work in cannabis retail prior to even selling the show?
Prior to even really truly conceptualizing the show, honestly, it was truly just, I love weed. I love the business. I love the plant. I love the community. I love all the potential in the world of cannabis. It is lush, ripe, fecund, verdant. I mean, I could go on. Like, I'm like, everything about this industry is opportunity, especially for women, right? Like, I feel like, look, it's hard out there for women everywhere. But I'm like, you know what? Cannabis uniquely felt like here. It is the Wild West in so many respects. And I was living in California, and I really just felt like I want to know. I want to know. And I come from the school of like grit. I truly believe the best way to learn something is to do it. And I know how to design, and I've been taking classes about commercial space, but dispensaries are unique animals. That's a unique business model, right? I knew that just as a customer. So getting into the space as a bud tender, starting, and I spent just a little under a year doing nothing but working in cannabis. I started as a bud tender, and I worked my way up to the management team. And that gave me, not at all, I am not saying I have my 10,000 hours, but I'll tell you what, I have a lot more hours than most designers out there. Yeah. And I really understand the needs of the space. And even as I say that, every space is unique. Every business is unique, every dispensary, right? They are so, all of the needs, even, God, brand by brand, but state by state, based on compliance regulation, right? Like, it's so specific that it just felt like, listen, I was going to need bedrock information about how this business works, how the banking aspect works, what goes on with your staffing, what goes on with your storage, what goes on with your vendors, what goes on with your compliance, what goes on. And my experience was, holy shit, what doesn't?
And there's no order. And to be more clear, like Kim was working at these shops right when rec turned over, right, in California. So it was a really tumultuous time in cannabis.
Just as it shifted.
Yeah.
Where it went from medical to rec. And we had lines out the door. And I mean, it was such an exciting moment. It just felt so civilized. It's these glimmers of the world you want to live in, right? And so being part of that was super exciting. But yeah, it was also just a real eye-opener of all of my complaints. Even as a lifelong business person, an entrepreneur, as a patient and a client, I had complaints about these environments that I was in. And then working in it, that's where I earned my empathy, because that's where you go, oh my God, you are lucky to keep your head above water, let alone figure out if your design looks good in the shop. You're lucky if your bud tenders know where the product is and if you have a functioning space. You're lucky if your POS is set up in a way that actually drives up ticket sales. Most of the time it is not. Like, it's like, because you're thinking about a million other things, and we haven't even talked about compliance. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. And that just changes.
By the week, by the hour it changes. So like, my hat is off to all small cannabis business people.
Yep.
I have nothing but love. And that really was what drove the concept for High Design. Is I just felt like, listen, I was working for a corporate cannabis company. I was giving my money to mom and pops, and I was watching the world change, and I was watching, the fact that a retail environment needed to be competitive now. These are retail environments. It is recreational. You do have to compete. There's someone down the street who's going to have a better bud, a better terp, a better breeder, but you name it, they're going to have something better than you have. So you need to step up. And a huge part of that, obviously, is the environment.
It really is. And something connected for me, and I realized all of these issues, the user experience is not being taken into account at these shops. Is that the takeaway that you had after working at that corporate shop? Is the user, I'm speaking in tech, that the consumer was not being ushered into a shop and treated like the sweet little baby that they are.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's yours, you can have it.
Yes, our sweet little babies just trying to buy some bud. Like, sweet babies, protect them. Like, exactly. It felt like, I had experienced a lot of different models. As a consumer, I, from the floor to the management, experienced a very specific corporate model. To me, the real takeaway was just, there are so many touch points for these companies that they have to hit so many marks to hit. And I felt like, the user experience, the consumer experience, it is a techie term, but it is true. It is the user, when you use this space, if you are an owner, if you are setting up shop, if you are getting ready to roll out your brick and mortar, you have to think about the user experience. You can have all the best ideas. You can have all the great systems. You can have your menu boards can be fabulous and wonderful. It won't matter if you have front-ended with huge amounts of tech. It can be beautiful even. It can be beautifully designed. And if you haven't thought about what the customer experience is from the minute they park their car or walk up to that front door, right?
Yeah.
Like, we smoke for a living practically. So I am never intimidated in a dispensary ever. I know this environment. These are my people. This is my space. I am not the sweet little baby.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm old and craggy and jaded, but I'm not the sweet little baby.
Exactly.
Right? And we need to be thinking about every customer that walks through the door as a sweet little baby, as if it's their first time they are newly hatched and they're hatched in a dispensary. What are they going to experience, right? Like that really has to be the key, because that experience is the first touch point. And that, I don't care if you bring me in and I hang the best wallpaper, and I don't care if you have the best displays, it won't matter. If the customer experience isn't positive, none of that matters and you won't last.
Yeah, and the timing of this show is so impeccable because we're two people that have loved this industry for a long time, and we're watching mom and pops kind of get gobbled up by the mergers and acquisitions that are really prominent this year and last year and probably the few years to come. That's just emerging industries. But a good design can help those small shops hold on through this ride and hopefully make it to the other side. And I'm curious how the production team and you selected these shops, and if there was a criteria or something maybe like you saw in pictures of the space that you really like were drawn to, like what helped you choose which stores to travel to?
Yeah. So, I mean, absolutely. That is the mission of high design, is giving small business the edge they need to compete in the new bazillion dollar industry that is cannabis, right? Yeah. And there are emerging industries and people are being gobbled up, and some people go into business hoping to get gobbled up. And I'm not even mad at that. It's fine. Yeah. But I feel like, the world, the world of cannabis is complex. It's getting more complex all the time. And so my offering is to say, listen, if I can help you with this one piece, that's a thing that I can do and that our team can do. And I can't sing the praises of my team enough. I can't sing the praises of Discovery Plus enough, because I tell you, I tried to sell this show a lot. And people said, no, cannabis. And Discovery Plus was like, small business, mom and pops, cannabis, cool. Like, we're behind that. So like, woman of color, content creator, they were behind it. Like, what? So I really so grateful for that. And our thinking as we were looking for these shops is that I felt like, listen, it's hopefully season 1 of many. And so I want to get as broad a swath as I can of this snapshot of what cannabis is like across America. And obviously casting, I had a fantastic casting team. They did such an impeccable job. The key really was the story. Ultimately, I don't want to spend time with assholes. And I'm betting you don't either.
No.
Right? So, I mean, that sounds very, It's a coarse way of saying, I really like a story that I can feel invested in and that I can root for. And it was finding those small businesses. And we say mom and pops, but it was all permutations of couples. It was two best friends, it's a husband and wife, it's a father and his daughters. I mean, it was all over the place. But finding those stories that were shine a light on a unique facet, challenge, or specific angle of the industry in that particular place, right? So we were in California, we were in Colorado, we were in Alaska, we were in Maine. Very different.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, state to state, cannabis is its own thing. So it was, it was a fascinating adventure. And I'm so pleased with who we found. Like, I just felt like, look, I want you to have fun. I'm an entertainer. I want you to have fun watching the show. You know what I mean? Like, of course, but I also want you to feel like it wasn't just sugar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, like, look, if we're going to lay down money, because these shops, they put forward a portion of the money for these renovations.
Mm.
The show does the lion's share, but they are not, their skin is all the way in the game, right? So it's just like, look, I want you to care about these people. If you're near where they are, I want you to go visit them. I want you to support them. This is how we hold on to the pieces of the industry that I think are really beautiful. And that's the community piece.
Yes. And there is a piece of that in the show. You travel around as you're designing the store and you kind of like experience the cannabis offerings. And there's one very specific shot from behind in the trailer that I really love, from behind the cannabis flowers, and you open the cabinet with such a sense of wonder. And that feeling, that wondrous feeling, I think is what we all love. All of us grizzled veterans of cannabis love about this plant is, even if you've seen jars of weed a million times, something about opening that cabinet and getting that gust of aroma. It's so special.
Never gets old. It never gets old. I mean, how is that possible? I have been enjoying this plant since I was 20.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, beautiful plant. And you mentioned the different states. I mean, just being a person in a state, the cultures are so different.
Yeah.
But stacked on top of that with what you're doing is a subculture of cannabis, often activist born. Each is so specific. And I'm guessing that translates into what a consumer wants from a design. So were these culture pieces of the show a way for you to take the temperature?
Yeah.
How did you do that before really like jumping into redesign?
Yeah. Oh my God. Cara, I just love that. We could talk all the time.
I know. I agree.
Okay, thanks for the awesome questions. I love them.
They're all just because I'm a curious gal.
I mean, I think we're wired very similarly.
You're probably also an Aries. I have a tendency of choosing Aries to interview.
Well, look, I mean, I think the culture piece is like everything.
It's essential.
I don't know how, for me, even getting down to like, you take cannabis out of it, you take business out of it, truly design. A question I have gotten asked for, oh God, have I been in this business 15 years? Yes. We're not going to do the math. I've been in the business a long time. No, screw that. I'm doing the math.
It doesn't matter. Age is beautiful.
Let's just reframe that. 48, still kicking, okay?
Yes.
Okay, 48. Launching, executive producing, starring in my show. So let's just own that space.
A show that's never existed before, a completely new concept.
It's a first.
We're just giving Kim her flowers. She deserves them.
Oh my God, we are blazing trails. I am honey. It's terrible.
And we love it.
It's an affliction.
If you can't use puns.
Culture.
Yeah, the culture of each state. And like, how did you tap into that?
Okay, so the key is culture. It's not even the state. It's really, truly the people I'm designing for. And I feel like that's such a, It's a beautiful question because it really speaks to the driver behind all design, or at least my mission, my kind of ethos behind design, which is it has to be driven by story. I work in a business where a lot of what we pump out as entertainment around design produces homogenized beige.
That's not your style.
Looks, right? Like it's very beautiful, and it's like a hotel, like the boutique hotel. Your home should feel like a hotel. I stay in enough hotels and I'm like, oh my God, I want my home to feel like my home, only mine, not like anyone else can be popped in, right? So that is the culture of the self, right? Like, what are your stories? And so my job is translating those stories into your space. That's the residential work. You look at cannabis, and I'm looking at all these other pieces, right? These ripples. It is a subculture. It is regulated differently state by state. Each California leads the way, but Denver has its own thing going. Like, it's just like, no, it's just these really interesting nuances. And so it was taking what is the story of, what are the owners? What is their story? What's their why? Why are they here? Really getting to that and getting to the essentialism of that. And then looking around at who are they serving? What neighborhood are they in?
That's a big
Who's
one.
in the neighborhood? Who comes? Like, what do they carry? But also, who's coming through the door? Is it walkable people? Is it local? Are people hearing about them and coming because they have this specific thing? And so people are driving.
That is a big point.
Right? Like, it's like, who's there? It's culture. And I feel like the more kind of specific we got about drilling down into, this shop on this block with these humans. Who are they and how does that look here in this context, right? And that for me is the fun part of the work. I think that's the puzzle that I enjoy. It's just kind of going, how I am the person with the words and the language and the know-how. And so being a translator is really my job. I'm going, okay, I'm talking to people and I'm listening to their hopes and their dreams and their vision for this. And my job is to translate between what they can't say or don't even know to say, right?
Yeah, that they don't even understand the subtext that's like underneath. Because cannabis dispensary owners and managers and budtenders are all chasing their tails, trying to be compliant and bring in people when there's stores everywhere. And sometimes the subtext, it's just too loud to find it. I'm curious if you had any experiences on the show where it took a little extra time to really find that through thread of, it took time to connect and kind of understand where you would go with the design. Do you have any like challenges you remember and like how you might have problem solved through those?
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that's interesting, obviously, is just you can't shut a shop down. I think out of 6 shops, I only was able to close 1. They had to be in operation.
Oh my goodness.
What? Because think about it. I'm not picking people who are flush.
Yeah, and they're paying a little bit too. Like getting a shop to close when I was budtending and like wishing we could update this weird layout or like the shadow boxes that were on Craigslist for free. Like you couldn't get a shop owner to shut down. It was impossible.
Never going to do it. And their argument, and it's sound, is I have people who rely on me being open, and if I'm not open, they will go somewhere else.
And that will be their main shop. Yeah.
Sorry,
I interrupted you.
No, I don't know. You're like PTSD. You're like, oh my God, I remember.
You can sense it.
I feel it. I lived it for a very short time, and it was fun. Like, I'm like, no, it's super stressful. So like I feel like, that is all part of it, is figuring out how to work with these individuals in this very specific situation with their very specific obligations, red lines, and options, honestly, some of which they create and some which are created for them by the state.
Yeah.
Working within that morass and figuring out, okay, how am I going to, and I had 6 days. I'm doing it in 6 days.
Oh my gosh. And so that's from conception and meeting them to a full redesign.
No.
Okay, good. It's a little easier then.
No. So I knew their stories. We cast them. I started a deep dive into those spaces, into who they were. That would lead to an interview with them, but I hadn't met them in person until the cameras were up on that day. But I'm walking into a space with a design. But here's the thing that was really challenging is that, listen, another one of the hitches is that, look, design is not static. That's not a static process. I can plan all I want. The minute I come into a space, if I've designed a space to the best of our ability with the measurements provided by owners, not always correct, right? So, right, there were just challenges inherent in a traveling show and in doing a certain amount of the design remote. We learned to solve that as we moved forward. But yeah, no, it was just, oh God, how deep do you want to go, Cara? Like, it was just
as deep as you'll
challenges were many. The challenges were many, but I think that's what made good TV.
Yeah. And state by state, I bet there are different flavors of challenges.
Always. Yeah. Every time, but that's life, right? Like the next challenge you learn. And then I would be like, okay, well, I'm never gonna do that again when it comes to X, Y, and Z. Look at me learning. And then we'd get to the next one and I would be like, oh my God, what? Really? I can't touch the Are you freaking kidding me? I'm designing case displays and I can't touch the product. Oh God. Oh my God.
The red tape is.
That's my PTSD. So I think of that. Like, I'm like, when you're like counting down, I have a review in exactly 4 hours. And I have cases that are a hot mess. And I have budtenders that are lovely, but doing a million other things, not just dealing with me. And I need these cases to be pristine and I can't physically lay hands on the product. I cannot legally touch it. Like,
that had to be so frustrating. Cases and products are their own like bane of my existence. Remembering how to
Bane.
Like,
Bane.
Are you going to hang them on a peg wall? Are you going to put them in a glass case to get crunchy?
Are there sniff pods? Are there not sniff pods?
I'm curious.
Like, I am so focused on that particular thing because it is such a freaking nightmare. And we have lost far too much sleep, you and I, about these freaking cases. And that is one of the things that's in my hopper is reimagining the case.
Nice.
Because I'm like,
how that works.
Someone's making this, right? No, they're not. It should be me because what the hell?
Yeah.
Make life easy for you as a manager. Make life easy for your budtenders. Make life easy for your clients. Like smart cases. Like get an amen. Oh my God, yeah.
And I've seen a lot of iterations. Like one with QR codes on the bottom of a fake box, and you put it on a thing in this big. Like there's some cool stuff, specifically mostly in California from my experience. That stuff exists.
There's a lot of movement in tech.
Yes, that's the big one. That's the light. The murders and acquisitions. Whoops. The mergers and acquisitions is one side. And then the beautiful tech that's supporting the industry is like the light of really this year for me. Product placement in the store and gosh darn menus. Like, are you going to have a TV with words too small for anyone to read? And then I've had so many budtender experiences there where someone walks in, won't talk to you. Just, this is a menu, just staring.
Yes.
Open mouthed.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that really chaps my hide, if I may say.
I want to know if there's like one product placement or aesthetic misstep that you kind of saw at dispensaries at each location that was like kind of similar throughout.
Yes. Yes. Yes, consistently. There were a few that didn't, but almost across the board. Having no merchandising hierarchy. Okay, so merchandising hierarchy, that is what you experience in a grocery store on the cereal aisle, right? Right, girl?
Yep. I'm never going to give that commercial up where they're duck walking through the cereal aisle.
I hope you embed that in this.
No one's remembered yet.
Have your editors put that in a little window box.
Just a little guy duck walking through the no explanation, please. Just cut it in.
I am so about that. That would be hilarious to us.
I don't know that dispensaries even merchandise, like a lot of them. I don't know that that's even a thought.
I mean, it isn't, and I get it. Look, you don't get into cannabis because you're a merchandising expert, right? So it's like, no, I get it. But I do feel like, look, that's what I saw again and again. I would walk into a space where little things like, you walk into a space and the first case is all the glass pieces, but the flower is on the other side of the room. Right? So just like small things that are like, look, they just put those little pieces here because that's where they could put, I'm like, we laugh because we go, oh, that's obvious. But I'm like, yeah, when you're in the weeds, it is not so obvious.
You're just doing your best.
You're doing the best you can. So I saw that merchandising hierarchy, meaning, that's top shelf.
Yeah. Put the good stuff up there.
Lower shelf. And it doesn't have to be laid out like that. I'm not talking literally. I'm just saying thinking about all of your products with that hierarchy in mind. And then I mentioned it earlier, but oh my God, there were the thing that was unique, I thought, about all of the dispensaries that I chose, and this is part of why I fell in love with these owners, is they all took customer service seriously. And so they were providing service in spaces that did not reflect the level of care that you received when you came in. And I feel like, listen, we have all been in the dispensary where the bud tenders act like gatekeepers of cool and information, and you're not, they're stoned. I don't mind medicating during the day, but medicate responsibly. And so if you're bud tending and I'm your boss, you are not dabbing indicas at work. I need you cerebrally to be ready to go. I am fine with sativas, okay? Work it out. But no, so it was just, you see so much stuff that wouldn't fly anywhere else. Imagine walking into a bar and every bar you walked into, the bartender was drunk, faced.
Oh man,
right? It's that. Would you be okay with that? You wouldn't be okay with that.
No. In California, it's much more safe to consume cannabis while on shift or on your lunch. In Arizona, illegal. So I moved to Arizona from California, just shocked.
Shocking.
Yeah, what? I just was like, so I have to be a cannabis patient to work here, but I cannot use the medicine while I'm supposed to be doing a very public facing, this doesn't add up.
Right.
But again, I would come back from lunch after doing the math wrong and be a little actually stoned rather than at my homeostasis. And I'm not going to lie to you, Kim, I sold a lot of the weed I smoked at lunch after. People would see me and be like, what are you? Can I buy that?
I'm not even mad at it. Here's why I'm not mad at it. Because I also believe of you specifically, that if I came in and I said, okay, girl, my sacrum is sore and I'm having headaches and blah, blah, even you would be able to say, okay. I'm talking about
I know what you mean.
Education of budtenders and a baseline of professionalism and being present so that you can care for people, right?
Yeah. Properly. And they can feel supported by you.
Supported and seen and listened to, and not just, it'll get you high. I'm like, look, we all have, I am that client sometimes. I just want the thing that's going to get me lifted.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. I'm treating something. So I want to know that the person who's handing me the medicine knows if I have questions that they're able to take care of me. And I feel like you said, like the sweet little babies holding them by the hands, like that's such a great visual, because I feel like, no, that's the key to everything. Like you have to feel as a client that you are walking in and you know what's expected. You know what to expect. It's so scary for people who don't know what to expect. And I think that's a hard thing for those of us in the industry to relate to, that it's intimidating, right? But, you know, talking to my father and talking to his wife, my stepmom, like, you know, they're boomers. And she was like, listen, the last time I smoked grass, it was 40 years ago. And I don't even know what to ask for. I'm so curious because I'm curious about this, and this, and maybe gummies, but I want to know what to ask for. And they are so like brainwashed by the Nancy Reagan era that there's that demographic of person that really wants to come in, but it is intimidating. It's all new. This is a brand new landscape.
Yeah. I've heard some say it takes like a year of trying to enter a store, just to go inside, not even buy anything.
I have friends who still won't go in. I have taken friends into stores. I have invited them in when I manage the store. They still won't go in unless I go with them. Like I can't explain that piece, but I do observe it. And I think it's really interesting.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, look, you have to think about that experience. And then, you know, the flip side of it is well, speak for myself, I am of the generation that came of age, and you came of age when you were 21 and you could buy alcohol. This is a generation who's coming of age, and their rite of passage will be the first time they go to a dispensary.
How exciting.
Right? Like, that's how they're going to roll. So it's that. Like, I just feel like, look, there's a whole world, and it includes everyone. And so I think that can either be really overwhelming for the owner, or you can acknowledge that, wow, it is spectacular. There's so many options. Let me get really specific about why I do this. Why am I in the business? What care am I providing? Why am I providing it? What's my why? And once you have figured that out, then you build around that piece, right? But I don't believe in scarcity. I feel like there's enough for everybody, right? And I just want to give small businesses the tools so that they can stay in the game. Yeah. And get theirs, you know?
They really do end up in a niche. Like I always ended up at stores where seniors felt comfortable. Yes. Like the medical store that's still holding on to medical despite being operating in a rec world. Yes. I'm curious if design can support like a wider array of people. For example, back in like 2008, I went to Berkeley Patients Group, and the smoking area, like the vapor lounge, every race, every like class, every age, sitting there together, giggling, passing vape bags. But now it seems like differentiation is getting a little more finite, and, you know, Gen Z really likes this store and Gen X really likes this store. Is there a way that design can kind of like welcome all people and be sort of like a inclusivity tool?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, I say, with certain caveats. Yes. I think that design can't be all things to all people any more than art can be all things to all people, right? Because we're talking about something that's subjective. So I will say that. I don't think there's a one size fits all, but I do feel like, no, the inclusivity and really welcoming everybody into this beautiful space.
That's what the plant's about.
It's what the plant's about. It's the genetic legacy of the plant. It's what it's for. And I do feel like it's little things, right? It's little things like being ADA compliant. That's not even a little thing.
That is not seen in my town.
That's not a small thing. That's a big thing.
But there's few dispensaries that are.
How is it possible that if I'm opening my brick and mortar and I open my doors, I want everyone coming in. I want the grandpa with Parkinson's and the walker. I want the person with the wheelchair. I want this medicine to be available to people for care. So it has to be ADA compliant. And I feel like, so it's little things like, don't have a rug in the waiting room. You're gonna trip people with walkers, or if it's rug, it has to be a flat weave, and it has to be wall to wall.
That's
it can't be a rug with a high lip. It's those things, right? So, like, I think being inclusive of the physicality of the space and really welcoming. And then I think as far as like culture, right? Z versus Y versus X and all the things that we like. I ultimately truly believe it because I've witnessed it again and again and again. If you have wonderful product, the best product you can afford, right? As an owner, if you have wonderful product, and not all the product, I'm not talking about 4,000 SKUs.
Because that happens, y'all. That is common.
Stupid. I'm just going to put it out there.
Thank you.
Save your hate mail. Send it somewhere else. I don't care. I said it. It's dumb. 4,000 SKUs. Where's the curation? Right? So to me, I feel like, look, the keys are you curate the best products that you can afford. And you prioritize an educated staff. And you prioritize a super welcoming, super friendly, put the crumbs really close together environment and welcome culture of the space. Even before you've lifted a paintbrush, the culture of the space. What happens to me when I walk in the door? Am I immediately acknowledged and greeted and told, we will be right with you, have a seat right here. We're gonna check, like, crumbs close together, right? Or am I left to wander and look at the security guard who's on his phone and not, right? Like, I'm like, right? Focus on, it's the golden rule. Treat people how you want to be treated. What is your ideal experience, right? Create that to the best of your ability. And then when you hit the wall with design, you call me.
Perfect. Throw that on a t-shirt. We didn't even get into the negative space that is so common in a dispensary, but I think we just did. The ushering in, like welcoming someone through the door, making people feel cared for, that I think is something both of us cherish about a cannabis retail experience. And I mean, I worked at the mall when I was 15.
Yeah, me too.
They told us the first thing, if you see a person, you tell them hello immediately as they enter that store. I just thought that that was something in all retail, but yeah, not common in cannabis sometimes.
Not common, and it has to be. Like, I do really, I mean, that's the world I want to be contributing to in the industry, right? Is a real understanding of not only are we now competitive in the retails, cannabis is a retail product, right?
Yeah.
So, what was it last year? What are the numbers? I think they're like 26 billion.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I'm like, there's a guy in a suit just making that up. I mean, yeah, they're huge.
Huge. The numbers are so huge. There's so much money being spent and being made. And I just feel like, look, it is blowing up and it is the Wild West, and we have an opportunity to create what we want to create here, right? Yeah. I think part of that, in my ideal world, is stepping away from the late stage capitalism of just 4,000 SKUs and move as much product as you can and get yours. And really coming back to the wholeness of the plant, right? Like, to just really be like, look, here's this beautiful plant. Let's focus on this. Let's focus on the people around this who love it. Let's move the needle positively, and let's make the experience of retail cannabis a beautiful experience for everybody who comes through the door. It doesn't have to feel like an Apple store. And why would you want it to?
Yeah.
It's not Apple, it's cannabis.
No. It's a whole different thing. And that was, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was like the only interior design ever applied to cannabis until like 2015.
You know,
like people were like, we got a new idea. It's gonna be like an Apple store. When I worked in San Francisco, it was the same. So it's not just one store; it's a lot of them.
It was a lot of them. I mean, we get the impulse. It's clean. It's user friendly. You understand. But I'm like, take those pieces. But why? Why would you want it to be so blank that it's not tech?
No,
it's cannabis. There's tech around it.
It's alive.
Fascinating. But it's alive. It's a living. This business is a lot. Like, why wouldn't you want that to be tactile in the retail? To me personally, I want to feel that. But it's not your average retail product. You know?
It's not. It can't be handled like anything, like cereal in the duck walking aisle. It's very much a special thing. And I love your point of we have the opportunity to build this industry the way that we would like it to be in 20 years.
Yep.
Lord help us get to 20 years on this planet.
I mean, I
but it's a little scary, you know, because without offerings like High Design, there's a lot of small business owners who have that same vision that are floundering. And I don't want to end on a sad note, but I did want to just ask you a really fun question to end is, what are you most excited about as the show comes to streaming TVs everywhere? What are you excited for people to watch and engage with in High Design?
It's just it wasn't even sad. Honestly, what you just were speaking about, what I am excited about, most excited about my baby. My baby is getting born tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
Amazing. Like, I'm so excited. And honestly, I think the thing that feels really exciting for me, and just like I look forward to the feedback, and was a huge intention of mine, is that I really wanted to tell the story of cannabis, small cannabis in America. And there isn't a lot of representation out there for cannabis, right?
Especially not positive.
Not positive. It's stoners. It's everything. It's Cheech and Chong, which love them, but we've been there. We've done that. I don't relate to that personally as a cannabis consumer, right?
Fun movie, not my life.
So fun, so great. But I'm like, it's a whole other world. And so the excitement for me is the ability to be the first person and the first show that really lets people pull back the curtain and step into the world. This is for so many people going to be their first experience of the inner workings of a cannabis dispensary, right? And so that to me is exciting, is to introduce a whole audience to an industry that I love and a community that I love through the lens specifically of the small businesses that are in it for all the right reasons, right? Like, I just feel like, look, I want you to see, if you can see it, you're going to recognize it. And so when you are trying cannabis in your community, you are going to hunt for, search for, and support that, because that is, I'm giving people their first taste. And that's what I hope, is that it grows. I hope I'm the first and not the last. You know what I mean? Like, it can be beautiful. It should be beautiful. It's so much fun to make it beautiful. God, I get so gushy. I love weed. I love weed. I love weed. I love weed. I love it. I love the people in it. I love the business of it. I think it's endlessly fascinating. I think it's rich. And I think it's really beautiful. And I'm excited for people to see all of those things, because I think we captured a lot of that. So I'm exceedingly proud of that.
I'm excited to see how you've made weed more beautiful. I'm stoked to watch the show tomorrow. The entire series will be available streaming on Discovery Plus April 14th.
April 13th. Tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was disconnected too before you got on the call.
Don't even worry about it. 13th. Mañana.
And it's a great thing to watch on 420 if you want to just enjoy a bowl and some yummy food and get to know some small business owners in the cannabis space all around the country. So I'm so thankful Kim could spend an hour talking to me on her probably really busy press tour for this show. And once again, I'm Cara Wietstock, I'm the culture editor for Ganjapreneur, and I host this lovely show called The Fresh Cut, where I get to speak to people like Kim Myles, who's the host of High Design, an interior design, reality star and host for many years. And you can watch her new show, High Design, tomorrow, April 13th. I watched the whole series, and I hope that after you watch this interview and that show that you go search out your local cannabis dispensary, get to know your budtenders, and find some amazing products. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Cara. It's such a pleasure. I am, a Ganjapreneur reader. So
I'd love to hear it.
Such a pleasure to be here with you. Such a thrill. And thank you so much for having me. And happy 420. Happy early 420.
Yes. Happy 420 to all the budtenders out there. We'll end this with my favorite thought is please tip your budtenders. What the heck?
Tip your budtenders in cash. My God. I don't care if the dispensary takes credit cards. You give them cash.
Bring that dollar.
Be an animal. Don't be an animal.
Bring a $5, please. Okay. Kim, so good to see you.
Thanks, Cara. I hope to talk to you again soon.